Today, we are going to do controlling part 2. And in this, we're going to study the various steps in the process of controlling. Now, there are 5 steps in the process of controlling, and we'll be doing them one by one. The first step is setting performance standards. Remember, children, the heading should be from NCERT. So you cannot write setting standards. You must write setting performance standards. So what are the people going to work at? What are they going to perform? So a benchmark has to be given to them. Every person who goes to an organization has to be told how much he has to make. For example, a worker, he joins an organization and he is told that he has to make 10 units. So this is the standard against which he has to produce. He has to make minimum 10 units. So first of all, when you want to control somebody's performance, you should always set standards. Now, standards can either be quantitative or qualitative. Now, quantitative standards are very easy to evaluate and set. For example, the worker was told to make 10 units. So it's very easy to see whether he's made 10 units or not. But when these standards are qualitative, sometimes it becomes a little difficult to evaluate them or even set them. For example, improving goodwill or increasing the motivation level of the employees. These are qualitative standards. Then second step in the controlling process is measurement of actual performance. Now, once the standards have been set, the second step is to measure the actual performance. Now, here two things need to be remembered. First, that the measurement should go on while the work is being done. Don't measure the performance after the work has been done. For example, in a candle making factory, the workers were being paid 1 rupee per candle. So because everybody wants to earn more, they were making a number of candles. So end of the day, one worker had made 100 candles. And the supervisor came and he rejected 50 of them. He said, it's not meeting the standard. The candles are not standing straight. The wick is not in the middle. Many reasons he gave and he rejected 50 of them. But the worker had made 100, but he was paid only rupees 50. Why? Because measurement of performance was done in the end. So as far as possible, the measurement of performance should be done while the work is being done. So if the supervisor had come and seen the work while he was doing it, he could have been told that the candles that you are making are not proper. You're opening the mold a little too early and they're not standing upright, and therefore give it a little more time. So maybe the worker would not have made 100 units. He would have made 80 units, but he would have at least earned 80 rupees. So measurement of performance should be done while the work is going on, and the measurement of performance should be in the same unit in which standards are set. It very often happens that standards are set in some other unit and measurement of performance is in another unit. For example, a sales manager told the salesman that if you sell television worth 40,000 rupees in 1 month, I'll give you some incentive, I'll give you bonus. So he told everybody that television worth 40,000 needs to be sold to get that bonus in 1 month. So there were 2 workers who could achieve it, salesmen who could achieve it. One salesman sold 10 TV of 4,000 each and he achieved the target. Another salesman sold only 1 television of 40,000 and he also achieved the target of 40,000. Now, when the time to give bonus had come, then the salesman said that I'm going to give bonus to this person who sold 10 television. Because throughout the month he sold, and you just sold 1. In 30 days, you sold only 1 television. I'm not going to give you bonus. Why? Because the standard set was against rupees. The standard was that you should sell television worth 40,000, not the units. Number of units were not the target. So if the standard was in rupees and measurement performance should also be in rupees, then you can't change it. So therefore, both of them deserve the bonus. And there are various parameters through which you can actually measure the performance, like personal observation or sample checking, etc., to see how the work is being done. And this is the second step. Then come to the third step, that is comparing actual with performance. So whatever the worker has done, compare it with what the target is and see whether it is going on fine or not. Because you need to control it. This is the controlling process. We need to see where the deviations are. And it is much easier to know what the deviations are in case the targets set are quantitative. But if the targets set are not quantitative, then in that case, it becomes a little difficult. For example, the targets are that we maintain very high level of hygiene. Now, what do you mean by high level of hygiene? So high level of hygiene is a qualitative term. Even that can be specified. The floor is mopped 3 times a day. There'll be no dishes in the sink at any point of time. Food that is not being used will be thrown away after half an hour. Gloves, apron, head is covered when the cook is cooking in the kitchen. So these details could be given to a eatery or a food restaurant where food is being made. So even qualitative standards like hygiene, etc., could also be converted, and then you can measure it. So the third step is comparing the performance with the standard. Then analyzing deviation. Now, when you compare, then you come to know what is the deviation. For example, the first example I gave you in the beginning was that a worker was told to make 10 units. Now, when the supervisor comes and says that he has made 8 units, so you have to see why he has not made 2 units. You have to analyze the deviation and find the cause. See, if the deviation is within range or very little bit deviation, then you can ignore it. You cannot look after each and every deviation. Deviations are expected. Everybody cannot be perfect all the time. But only those deviations which need the attention of the manager should be brought to the notice of the manager. Now, there are two methods of evaluating deviations, that is critical point control and management by exceptions. And these are very important. Both of them are very important. First is critical point control. Now, critical point control says that in every organization, identify the key result areas, that is KRA, and the management should focus on that. So each and everything that's taking place in an organization may not be equally important. So for example, 5% increase in labor cost is really very important. But 15% increase in postal charges are not very important. Suppose your postal charges are rupees 400. And even if it increases by 15%, it's not a big amount. But your labor charges are running into lakhs of rupees. So little bit of increase in that 5% increase will really be a cause of concern because your cost will go up. So the manager should identify the critical points or the main points. And remember, children, there are 2 C's in critical point control. And therefore, we are comparing 2 things. So in the case study, if you are asked, if you are given 2 things in the question, and then you are asked which method of deviation is being used here or should be used here, then it is critical point control, because in critical point control, we actually compare 2 different things. Then comes management by exception. There's a saying that if you try to control everything, you end up controlling nothing. You're not supposed to control everything. Have you ever seen your mother cooking rice? When the rice is cooked, she will just take out 1 grain of rice, squeeze it and see whether it is cooked or not. She will not test each and every grain of rice to see whether it's cooked or not. Why? Because if you try to control everything, you can end up controlling nothing. So this is management by exception. So look into exceptional things that is beyond the permissible limit. Don't look at every deviation. Only those deviations which are a cause of concern, those only should be looked into. And this is also called control by exception. For example, 2% labor cost is bound to increase because of increase in DA, CCA, etc., price level changes. So labor cost will increase. But if it increases beyond 2%, then the manager should look into that deviation. Because if he tries to control everything, he'll actually end up controlling nothing. Now remember, in MBE, management by exception, we are talking only about one thing. You must remember, only one thing. In CPC, we were looking at 2 things. We are comparing 2 things, but in MBE, we are talking only about one thing. Here, we are talking only about the labor cost. So when in the case study, if you're asked, only one thing is being talked about, then it has got to be MBE. But if the deviations are very high, then immediately report it to the CEO of the organization, because that needs immediate attention. Then the 5th step is taking corrective action. Now, once you have found out what the deviation is, then you need to take corrective action. Now, if there is no deviation or positive deviation, then no, you don't need to take any corrective action. Like this worker who has just been appointed, he made 9 units the first day, then just wait for some time. Tomorrow he'll make 10 because this was the first day. But still, if he's not making up to the mark, or next day he's making 8 unit or 7 unit, then you need to see what it is. So what are the various corrective actions that could be? Maybe you can give training to the employees if he's not able to do, or maybe you can change the standards that have been set, because through controlling we come to know whether the standards that are set are proper or not. So some methods are given here. Causes of deviation are, suppose the material is defective, then the corrective action could be change the quality. And if the machinery is defective, then replace or repair the machinery. Then if the machine has become obsolete, that is why the production is not up to the mark, then upgrade it. If the process is defective, then modify the process. And the physical conditions are not good, because of that, it leads to a lot of fatigue and people are not able to produce to the maximum, then improve the condition. So there could be various causes of deviation, and accordingly the manager has to take the action. So with that, we go on to the case study, and first we'll see what has been asked, and then we'll go about looking for that particular point in the case study. So here it says, name the function of management and identify the step in the process of the function which help in finding out that the actual performance of the worker is less than the target. So actual was less than the target. The step, they're saying which step it is. What further steps should the manager take? Okay. Sita, Geeta and Babita Limited is engaged in manufacturing machine components. The target of production is 250 units per day per worker. The company has been successfully attaining this target until 2 months ago. Over the last 2 months, it has been observed that the daily production varies between 200 to 210 units per worker. Name the function that, of course, you know it's controlling, and identify the step. Now you need to know the step, and you first see which 2 steps have already been mentioned here, or which 1 step has already been mentioned here, and then go about looking for it. So I'll give you a moment for that. Yes, I think you got it correct. See, we have already got these 2 steps have already been mentioned. Obviously, the 3rd step is being talked about, and then the other 2 steps. So the answer is function is controlling, and the step is comparing actual performance with the standard, and the remaining 2 steps are analyzing deviation and taking corrective action. That's all in this video. Thank you.